Hello everyone. Welcome back tonight. This time, things get darker, much darker. Forget fairy tales and brave knights. Forget feasts, romance, and shining swords. We're going to 15th century England, a place where misery had a heartbeat, where hunger ruled more than any king, where people prayed, bled, and vanished. You've just opened your eyes there. It's cold, damp, and strangely quiet. Smoke drifts above the tiny thatched huts. The air tastes like wood, ash, and rot. A dog barks, then suddenly stops. Somewhere, a church bell tolls twice. That sound means someone has died. Welcome to England, the year 1450. The good news, you're still breathing. The bad news, so are the rats. They crawl through straw, under your bed. They rule the night like tiny kings. Their empire is made of filth, and their soldiers carry the plague. Yes, that plague, the Black Death. It still lingers, silent, invisible, cruel. You can't see it, but it's near. It hides in fleas, in water, in breath. You cough once, and people step back. They look at you like you're cursed, because maybe you are. No one fully trusts anyone anymore. A simple sneeze can end friendships. Villagers whisper prayers behind their hands. Everyone smells like smoke and fear. Every cough could be your last. Every prayer could be your goodbye. People believe the plague is punishment, not from nature, but from God. They confess their sins to frightened priests. They whip their backs to earn forgiveness. They walk barefoot through mud and blood. They carry candles, crying for mercy. But mercy rarely visits this place. The streets are narrow and slick. Buckets of waste spill into the gutters. Children play beside piles of bones. No one stops them. No one dares. Death is as common as bread. Actually, bread might be rarer. Food is a cruel joke here. Breakfast is thin porridge and hope. Dinner is the same, just colder. If you're lucky, you get bread. If unlucky, you get mold instead. Cheese smells like feet, but edible. Meat? Forget it. That's for nobles. Your feast is whatever didn't rot. Imagine sitting at your wooden table, your bowl cracked, your spoon splintered. Steam rises from your porridge slowly. You pick out a floating bug. You eat it anyway. Extra protein. You thank God for your meal, because not everyone had one. Outside, the wind howls through the village. Smoke curls from chimneys like black fingers. Crows perch on rooftops, watching quietly. They always know who's next. Disease doesn't care who you are. Farmer, beggar, even the priest. Everyone is just another body. Some burn, some rot, some disappear. The plague doesn't knock politely. It scratches at your door at night. It creeps in with the morning air. It takes your neighbor, then your son. It leaves silence and a terrible smell. If you survive, congratulations. Barely. You're probably starving, coughing, and alone. Your teeth are black, your hair greasy, your skin itches from fleas and fear. And still, you go to work tomorrow, because rent never takes a holiday. Your lord demands crops and taxes. You plant in mud, bent and tired. The ground is hard. Your hands cracked, blisters pop. Blood mixes with dirt. You wipe sweat, then wipe tears. You pray your body lasts the season. But sometimes, prayer isn't enough. You skip church to finish your field. The priest notices, and word spreads fast. They say you angered God himself. Now you're not just poor, you're guilty. You could be punished for missing Mass, or worse, for speaking against the church. Punishments here are creative. Steal bread, lose a hand. Lie, lose your tongue. Speak against the king, lose your head. Everyone fears the wooden stocks, hands and neck locked, face in shame. Children throw mud. Adults spit. You stand there for hours, humiliated, sometimes days, under rain and laughter. Then, there's the whipping post. men tied, backs ripped open by ropes. The crowd cheers like it's theater, because pain is entertainment here. It reminds everyone who holds power. If your crime is worse, witchcraft, heresy, treason, then the stage gets much bigger. They build a platform in the square. A rope hangs, swinging in the wind. People bring children, food, and songs. Execution day is a holiday here. The condemned walks, barefoot and shaking, hands bound, eyes red from prayer. He smells like smoke and fear. The priest whispers forgiveness too late. The crowd gasps, then cheers. A body drops, a life ends, and everyone claps like it's a sermon. That's 15th century justice. Fast and final. No lawyers, no mercy, no second chance. Your word against the Lord's word. The Lord wins, every single time. And after it's done, life just continues. People sweep the square and go home. They cook their porridge, feed their pigs. They step over the blood in the street. They talk about the weather, not death, because death is already part of weather. At night, you hear wolves in the distance. They circle the village, sniffing hunger. You pull your blanket tighter, heart racing. You can hear rats under the floorboards. You can feel fleas crawling up your arm. You whisper a prayer, just in case. You close your eyes, pretending it's quiet, but it never really is. Morning comes, gray and heavy. Fog rolls over the muddy fields. It hides the graves behind the church. It hides the faces of the living. The sun tries to shine, but fails. Even light seems tired these days. Roosters crow, but sound hoarse. Chickens scratch the frozen ground. A cow moans in a distant barn. Every sound feels like a struggle. Even breathing feels like labor now. You wake up in your straw bed. Your blanket smells of smoke and sweat. Your stomach growls. No surprise there. You count your breaths. Thank God quietly. Then, you step outside into the mud. The village moves like slow machinery. Women carry buckets. Faces pale and quiet. Men lift tools. Shoulders bent with years. Children chase each other, laughing weakly. Everyone pretends life is normal today. Everyone knows it isn't. You hear rumors whispered in corners. They say the plague reached the next town. They say corpses were buried alive. They say witches cursed the northern fields. They say too much. But believe it all. Superstition feeds the people's hunger. If crops fail, it's witchcraft, not weather. If the baby dies, it's the midwife's fault. If the Lord's son gets sick, it's sin. Blame keeps the world spinning here. The priest preaches about obedience again. He says suffering is a holy gift. He says pain brings the soul closer. He says God loves the humble most. You try to believe, but it's hard. You look at his robes, clean and fine. He eats meat while you eat dust. His hands are soft, yours are cracked. He blesses your hunger with golden rings. Something inside you quietly turns bitter. Still, you bow your head and nod, because questioning faith means punishment, and no one survives punishment twice. That night, thunder shakes the sky. Rain pours like the earth is crying. Water floods through the narrow streets. It washes blood, dirt, and secrets away. The storm drowns even the church bells. You sit by a dying fire, shaking. Your clothes drip, your hands are numb. The wind howls like a ghost outside. Every gust sounds like someone screaming. You whisper to yourself to stay awake, because nightmares wait. If you sleep, lightning flashes through the window, cracks. For a second, you see something outside, a figure standing in the rain. Still, you blink, it's gone. But you're not sure. You clutch your wooden cross tightly. The next morning, the village gathers. A woman was found near the river, her eyes open, her lips blue. They say she spoke to spirits last night. Now they call her a witch. Of course, the crowd grows fast, fueled by fear. Everyone points, everyone shouts. No mercy. She's dragged to the square by men, her hands tied, her face streaked with mud. She keeps saying she's innocent, crying. But innocence doesn't matter here. They test her with water. The trial. If she sinks, she's pure and forgiven. If she floats, she's guilty and burned. Either way, she dies before sunset. The crowd prays as they watch her drown. The priest says, "Justice has been done." The people cheer, forgetting her name. Then they go home and eat supper. Evil feels lighter when someone else dies. You watch in silence, heart trembling. Something feels wrong, deeply wrong inside, but you stay quiet, like everyone does, because silence is safer than truth. Weeks pass, and the cold deepens. Fields freeze. Rivers turn to glass. The air smells like death and frost. Even the birds seem to have vanished. You burn anything to keep warm. Anything. Wood, straw, broken tools, even books. Yes, books. Because who reads anymore? Words don't fill stomachs or mend wounds. They just remind you of better times. Your hands bleed from chopping wood. You cough black from the smoky air, but you keep working hour after hour, because stopping means freezing, then dying. At night, people whisper ghost stories. They say souls wander after execution. They say the dead don't rest easily. They say you can hear their footsteps sometimes. You've heard them. Faint, dragging, real. One night, you wake to knocking. 3 slow knocks on your wooden door. You freeze, barely breathing, heart hammering. The knocking comes again, louder now. You whisper a prayer and light your candle. When you open the door, nothing, only wind and rain. No one there, but on the ground, muddy footprints, small, bare feet leading toward the church. You follow them, trembling in the dark. The church door creaks, open slowly. Inside, the candles flicker like frightened souls. The air is heavy with wax and death. You see the priest kneeling before the altar. He's crying, whispering words you can't hear. Then you see something beside him. A shape, a woman's figure, pale as snow, unmoving. Her eyes open, but not seeing. Her dress torn, soaked in river mud. It's the witch, the drowned one. You drop your candle. It goes out. Darkness swallows the church completely. You run, stumbling through the graveyard. Your breath cuts like knives in your chest. You don't stop until sunrise comes. The next day, no one believes you. They say the dead can't walk again. They say you dreamed it from hunger, but you know what you saw that night, and you can't unsee her pale eyes. From then, the village changes slowly. More sickness, more graves, more silence. Even the priest avoids the river now. He preaches softer, voice shaking slightly, like he knows something he won't say. You begin to wonder about everything. Is God watching, or just gone away? Are we punished, or simply forgotten? Is heaven just a story to keep us calm? You don't dare ask. Not out loud. Days blur into nights without meaning. Work, hunger, prayer, sleep. Repeat again. You measure time by funerals and storms. Every week feels like a borrowed gift. Then one morning, something changes. A traveler arrives. Cloaked, hooded, quiet. He carries a small wooden chest. His eyes are strange, calm, and sharp. He asks for the priest. Nothing else. Rumors spread before noon that day. They say he's a scholar from London. They say he fights plague with knowledge. They say he reads stars and ancient books. They say many things, as always. But when he speaks, people listen. His voice is steady, almost peaceful. He talks about herbs, not curses. He talks about water, not witches. He says the plague is not divine. He says it comes from filth and rot. Some believe, most don't. Too new. Truth sounds dangerous when fear feels safe. The priest looks uneasy beside him. The people glance between them both. Faith or reason? Which saves faster? Days later, he helps the sick quietly. He washes wounds, burns infected clothes. He teaches children to boil water first. Slowly, fewer die that week. Whispers start to turn into hope. You begin to feel something forgotten. Calm. You dream of sunlight and clean air. You start to believe the curse can end. You even smile, just once, at dawn. But hope in England is fragile glass. It shines beautifully, then cracks fast. The scholar is found dead one night. No wound, no theft. Just gone. Some say poison. Some say God's wrath. Some say the priest prayed too hard. The chest he carried is missing too. They say it contained forbidden texts, words that could cure or curse the world. The church bans his name the next day. The villagers bury him in silence. Life returns to its quiet despair. People stop boiling water again. The priest preaches louder than before. The sky stays gray for another season. And yet, something lingers in your chest. A thought. Small but impossible to kill. Maybe the scholar was right all along. Maybe reason is holier than fear. Maybe truth doesn't burn. It heals. You start to look at the world differently. You watch the rats, the wells, the hands. You start cleaning before eating now. You burn old rags, wash wounds carefully. You see fewer deaths in your home. No one thanks you. But that's fine. You're not doing it for thanks anyway. You're doing it because you've seen enough. Because knowledge feels like light in darkness. Because you want to live, truly live. And in this bleak world, that's rebellion. To survive is an act of defiance. To hope is a kind of sin here. But you keep hoping, quietly, stubbornly. You believe morning will come again. The fog still clings to the hills. The church still tolls its heavy bell. But your breath feels lighter somehow. You walk through the mud with purpose now. And maybe, just maybe, that's salvation. The bells toll again. Slow and hollow. Each echo crawls across the valley floor. It is not for prayer this time. It is for death. Another one gone. The sound has become a background noise now. You stop counting after the 10th funeral. The gravedigger no longer says prayers. He just hums softly. Hands trembling. Tired. The ground is too wet for mercy. The air smells of damp cloth and rot. They say the sickness came from rats. They say it came from foreign ships. They say it came from God's anger. They say everything. But truth feels distant. The truth is, everyone is afraid. The plague moves like smoke through streets. No one sees it, but all feel it. It kills faster than words can travel. By morning, a cough becomes a grave. By night, the candles burn without tears. The priests march door to door, chanting. They swing incense, thick and choking. The smoke mixes with the stench of death. They pray louder, as if shouting helps, but the angels stay silent through it all. You see a mother, holding her child. The boy is pale, shaking, barely breathing. The priest tells her it's God's will. She nods, but her eyes say otherwise. She buries him before sunrise. Alone, soon. Entire streets are abandoned, doors nailed shut, windows covered tight. Inside, the silence feels almost alive. The living hide from the dying nearby. Every breath feels like borrowed time now. You hear strange stories in the tavern. Some say London has burned its sick. Others say monks whip themselves for forgiveness. They bleed in circles, chanting until faint. They believe pain cleanses the soul completely. You wonder if faith is strength or madness. How much must one suffer for salvation? When does belief become its own disease? You have no answers, only questions now. The church begins its punishments anew. They claim the plague is the devil's work. They accuse women, beggars, midwives, healers, anyone different becomes a target overnight. The The pyres burn brighter than the sun itself. In the square, you watch another trial. A young healer, barely 20, trembling. She pleads she only brewed herbs, not spells, but fear outweighs reason. Every single time, the crowd cheers as the flames climb higher. The priest raises his hand, eyes closed. He calls her death, a holy cleansing. The smell of burning flesh fills the air. You taste ashes for days after that, and still, the sickness keeps spreading. By winter, the graveyard has no space. They dig new pits near the old mill, bodies wrapped in linen, nameless, forgotten. Snow falls over them like a blessing, but the snow melts, and bones remain. Hunger follows the plague like a shadow. No one farms when death walks nearby. Granaries empty, and bread turns black. You eat what you can. Roots, rats, bark, even rotten cheese feels like a miracle. Some families turn to darker acts. There are whispers of meat that isn't meat, a missing child, a strange stew, uneasy silence. No one asks, because hunger forgives everything. Morality dies faster than the body does. You try to keep your faith alive. You pray before every cracked loaf. You whisper the Psalms in broken Latin, but the words taste hollow on your tongue. It's hard to pray when God won't answer. Then one night, something changes again. A monk arrives from the northern abbey. He travels with a wagon of corpses. He says he's bringing them to holy ground, but his face tells another story entirely. You watch him unload the dead, quietly. He works alone, eyes red from sleepless nights. He whispers names under his breath. Hundreds. You ask if God still watches the world. He looks at you and simply says, "No." The next day, the monk vanishes. The wagon remains empty, bloodstained. People say he was taken by angels. Others say he wandered into the woods. You think he just couldn't bear the guilt. Disease turns friends into strangers fast. No one touches, no one embraces anymore. Even love becomes something dangerous now. Weddings stop. Laughter fades. Songs disappear. All that remains is coughing and prayer. And yet, the church grows stronger still. Desperation breeds obedience. Like weeds in rain. People kneel longer, confess louder, give more. They trade silver for blessings, bread for indulgence. Forgiveness has never been this expensive. The bishop visits, once every fortnight. He arrives in silk, guarded by soldiers. He calls the plague a test of faith. He says gold can ease the burdened soul. You almost laugh, but swallow it down. He blesses the sick with a gloved hand. He eats roasted meat while peasants starve. He quotes scripture while eyes beg silently, and still, they kiss his ring and thank him. Fear is the finest leash ever made. You begin helping secretly at night. You wash wounds, share stolen herbs, whisper hope. The church calls it heresy. But you continue. You've seen enough death to know better now. Faith without mercy is just cruelty with hymns. One evening, a knock at your door. 3 guards, torches, the priest behind them. They say you've been accused of witchcraft. They say healing without permission is sin. They say mercy belongs only to the church. They drag you through mud, toward the chapel. Villagers stare, silent, afraid to speak. You see pity in their eyes. Nothing else. The priest's face glows in the firelight. He smiles like a man doing God's work. You are thrown into a wooden cell. The walls drip. The floor stinks of mold. Chains bite your wrists, heavy and cold. The guard says, "A confession saves your soul." But you know what that really means. Fire. You hear others screaming in nearby rooms. Some beg. Some sing. Some just whisper. You realize hell isn't a place below. It's right here, in this stone cage. Days pass. Or maybe weeks. Who knows? Light fades. Time melts. Hunger gnaws deeply. You dream of the monk, the healer, the dead. You wonder if they wait for you somewhere, or if heaven has closed its gates for good. Then, one stormy night, a voice outside, soft, hurried. Someone unlocking the door. It's the baker's daughter, eyes wild with fear. She says, "You saved my brother, now go." You run before the guards even wake. Rain pounds the fields as you escape. Lightning splits the black sky above. You cross the river, barefoot, shaking, cold. Behind you, the church bell tolls again. This time, you don't look back at all. You wander for days. Starving, weak, villages refuse you. Towns shut their gates. No one trusts strangers. During plague season, you sleep under trees, eat roots, drink rain. Every night, you pray less and less. Until one dawn, you see smoke ahead, a small camp, firelight flickering through mist. A group of wanderers, faces scarred, eyes kind. They welcome you, offer soup, no questions. You sit among them, shivering and thankful. They call themselves the Broken Faith. Ex-priests, healers, heretics, and widows, people who once believed, then saw too much. They wander from town to town, helping others. They risk death every time they light a fire. You listen to their stories through the night. One man lost his family to church soldiers. Another was burned for curing a fever. All carry wounds that never truly heal, but they still smile. Somehow, still human. For the first time in months, you laugh. It sounds strange, rusty, almost forgotten. They share bread. Real bread, not moldy scraps. It tastes like peace. Fragile, but real. Later, a woman hands you a small book. Its pages are torn, ink smudged by tears. It's the scholar's writing. The lost one's words. The same chest the monk carried long ago. You feel your hands tremble holding it. Inside, you read simple, forbidden truths. Clean water saves more than prayer. Mercy is worth more than gold. God gave reason, not for fear, but light. You close the book and weep quietly, because truth has survived after all, because knowledge still breathes, even now, and maybe that's the miracle everyone missed. From that night, you never stop walking. You teach, heal, and whisper what you know. You carry the book, wrapped in linen cloth. Each village you visit, one more life saved. Each soul you touch, one candle lit again. The plague still stalks the land around, but you are no longer afraid of it. You've seen worse. Ignorance, greed, and hate. And still, you've chosen to hope again. You don't pray to the same God anymore. You pray to the one who forgives knowledge, the one who lives in mercy, not in fire, the one who whispers, "Survive, then teach." And as dawn breaks over England's ruins, you walk on, tired, scarred, but alive. A single figure against the endless mist, carrying faith, not of fear, but reason, and that is where the true light begins. The wind howls across Greystone, bells echo through the empty square. It is dawn in medieval England, and justice is about to wake. The villagers gather in silence, their eyes fixed on the wooden platform. Ropes hang like sleeping serpents. The smell of blood never leaves here. Every week, a body swings. Every day, someone confesses or dies. Because in this world, truth hurts, and lies, they hurt even more. The church watches from its tower. Gold crosses glint in weak sunlight. The priests hold books in chains. They speak mercy, but deliver pain. Confession was never really mercy. It was control, pure and absolute. A whispered word could damn you, or worse, damn your entire family. In the courts of the holy men, guilt is a matter of convenience. The poor are guilty by existence. The nobles, By none at all. A woman accused of witchcraft trembles, her hands bound, her eyes wide open. They say she spoke to the moon. They say her cow died. Suspiciously. The priest nods. The crowd gasps. Someone spits. Someone crosses themselves. Superstition feeds their hunger for order. They need someone to blame today. The punishment will be public. Always. Justice unseen is justice wasted. They build fear like cathedrals. Tall. Perfect. And every brick is another broken life. The stocks stand in every village. Wooden cages for shame and mockery. Children throw mud at sinners' faces. Adults laugh, pretending it's righteousness. Imagine the cold of those mornings, bare feet on frozen ground, trembling. The body aches, the stomach growls, and yet the whip comes anyway. Whipping was not about pain alone. It was performance. A sacred show. Every strike sang a sermon of control. Every scream proved divine authority worked. Men flogged for stealing bread. Women beaten for gossiping too loud. Priests watching, with eyes half closed. They called it penance. We call it cruelty. The pillory was worse than death. Days locked. Head and hands trapped. Flies. Rain. And laughter, your only companions. You don't die fast. You rot slowly. But there were darker places still. Below castles. Deep beneath cathedrals. Dungeons that swallowed voices whole. Rooms built not for punishment, but silence. Torture was an art of persuasion. They used heat, spikes, ropes, and fear. The rack stretched truth from every joint, and pain became a form of prayer. There was a wheel, called Catherine's Wheel. A saint's name, twisted into metal horror. They broke bones one by one. Singing hymns, mercy ended only when the body did. And yet, people came to watch. Families, children, old men with bread. They treated executions like festivals, a picnic, with death as the guest. The hangman was a celebrity here, paid well, respected, and feared equally. He was both sinner and savior in one. His rope, the hand of divine justice. The gallows stood tall by the gate, wood creaking. Crows waiting their turn, they always come. Crows never miss, they know where death earns its bread. For nobles, death came differently. Silk ropes, sharp blades, softer prayers. Even in punishment, class had rules. The poor died ugly, the rich with grace. Beheading was the gentleman's escape, quick, clean, almost polite in tone, but it still ended with red on stone, and the crowd still wanted more blood. Power was fed by spectacle, without fear. People might question, without pain. People might dream, and dreaming was the real crime here. The church and crown shared this power. Faith and steel, hand in hand. One ruled the body, one the soul. Together, they ruled everything else. Even words could be treasonous. A joke about the king, a whisper, that was enough to lose your tongue. Literally. They cut it out clean. Books were burned. Ideas hunted down. Knowledge was a threat to obedience. Better the people stay afraid and quiet. Better they pray than they think. The inquisitors traveled from town to town. Black robes, crosses, torches, and lists. They asked questions no one should answer, and punished both yes and no the same. You could confess, or be tortured. You could deny, and still die screaming. It wasn't about truth or lies. It was about control and spectacle. Some were branded with hot iron. Letters burned into living flesh. T for thief, W for witch. A lifetime label, carved in pain. And yet, people accepted it all. They believed suffering brought salvation. That pain was proof of divine love, a cruel logic, wrapped in holy robes. Power was everywhere and nowhere. It lived in the cross. And the sword, in the fear behind every closed door. in the silence before every scream. But there were cracks in the faith, whispers in taverns, songs in the fields, peasants asking why God favors gold, scholars daring to read forbidden books. The printing press was coming soon, a small machine, but a huge threat, because once people could read truth, they would never unsee the lies. Before that day, punishment ruled all. Even death couldn't free the guilty. Bodies hung long after souls were gone, as reminders. Obedience never ends. Children grew up watching suffering. They learned what silence was worth. They learned not to look too long. They learned fear before they learned hope. And the rulers smiled through it all, because fear was cheaper than armies, chains were lighter than rebellion, and prayers sounded better than protests. Every system needs fuel to live. For medieval England, that fuel was fear. It powered the church, the throne, the crowd. It burned in every sermon and sword. Even when justice came dressed in gold, its heart was still made of iron. Forgiveness was a luxury of power. The poor never earned that price. So the wheel kept turning endlessly. Each scream echoed through the centuries. Each rope swung another warning high. The lesson: obey or disappear forever. Night falls again over the gallows hill. Smoke rises from a burned confession. The crows feast. The crowd drifts home, and the church bells ring for supper. No one speaks of what they saw. No one remembers the faces lost, because in this kingdom of fear, memory itself is a dangerous thing. But history remembers what silence hides. It whispers through ruined towers still. The wind carries voices through the ages, voices that once begged, "Mercy, my Lord." And maybe that's the real punishment. That power fades, but guilt remains. That kingdoms fall, but cruelty echoes forever beneath the stone and the cross. You've survived another night somehow. Your body aches. Your lungs rasp quietly. Outside, a faint fog hangs over everything. It smells of rot, wood smoke, and despair. Welcome to another day of survival. But today feels colder than usual. The air is heavy, almost watchful somehow. Something lingers in the silence outside. You sense it before you see it. The plague has reached your village. Rumors travel faster than any messenger. They say it came from the ports, from foreign ships, full of rats. From the rats came the fleas. From the fleas came death itself. You've heard whispers, prayers, and screams. They say a single bite kills quickly. They say the fever burns like hellfire, and the boils, black, swollen, oozing, never heal. Some call it divine punishment, others curse fight. You peek through a gap in the door. A cart rolls slowly down the lane. It creaks under the weight of corpses. A bell tolls, low, hollow, endless. Bring out your dead. The men shout. No one answers. But doors crack open. Bodies wrapped in rags are tossed in. Mothers, fathers, children, even priests. The stench is unbearable, almost physical. You cover your mouth with a dirty sleeve. People stop burying the dead properly. There are simply too many to count. The churchyard is full, overflowing now. Graves are shallow, hurried, and forgotten. Sometimes they burn bodies in pits. Sometimes they just leave them outside. Dogs roam the edges of the village. They dig where they shouldn't dig. And the bell, always the bell, keeps ringing. It's the sound of death itself approaching. The priest says, "This is God's wrath." He says sinners brought this upon everyone. He says confession may save your soul, but not your body, not your flesh. So people kneel, pray, and tremble. Some flagellate themselves with iron chains. They bleed in the streets, begging forgiveness. Their cries echo like ghosts in the fog. You watch, frozen, not sure what to believe. Maybe God has turned away from mankind. You've seen men steal bread from corpses, You've seen mothers abandon sick children. You've seen neighbors set huts on fire. Fire cleanses, they say. Fire saves. Smoke rises like black sermons. But the rats always come back. You try to stay clean, but can't. There's no real clean in this world. Water is scarce. Soap, almost mythical. You wipe your hands, but filth remains. The market is half empty these days. Food is rotting before it's sold. The butcher's stall smells like decay. Meat crawls before it's even cooked. Bread is hard, gray, and moldy. Cheese tastes of cellar, damp and sorrow. Sometimes you find barley or dried peas, but even that is full of tiny worms. You pick them out. Or maybe you don't. Hunger doesn't care about dignity anymore. The rich eat better, but not safer. Their tables are long, covered in meat, pork, goose, pheasant, maybe even swan, but servants cough near the food plates, and flies hover. Fat and fearless, wine doesn't purify like they think. Silver goblets hide the same disease. Even kings can't escape the unseen hand. The plague spares no crown, no cross. Death feasts with everyone equally here. You remember when festivals filled the streets? Now the only parade is for the dead. Church bells once sang for weddings. Now they only toll for mourning. Priests wear masks soaked in herbs. They say rosemary keeps demons away. You can smell it stronger than hope itself. Every prayer feels heavier, more desperate. The church is packed, not with believers, but with bodies, waiting for a miracle. Outside, punishment grows harsher each day. Law has become fear, order born of panic. The stocks and gallows never stay empty. Someone must always be blamed, they say. Witches, thieves, and blasphemers all burn. The fire glows bright against the gray sky. It crackles with screams and sanctimony. The crowd cheers, hungry for control again. You watch, unable to look or look away. Justice is loud, cruel, and very medieval. A man was whipped for stealing bread. A woman's tongue was cut for gossip. A boy hanged for touching the wrong relic. You wonder if anyone remembers mercy. The sheriff rides through mud and misery. His armor shines with borrowed righteousness. He smells like iron, sweat, and wine. Even he fears what he can't punish. When night falls, no law truly exists. Only hunger, sickness, and superstition remain. The monastery offers prayers for the dead, but even monks die faster than they chant. Candles melt before the last Amen finishes. Books lie open, pages stained with tears. Illuminated saints stare from fading margins, their gold leaf halos, now cracked and dark. The scribes write obituaries instead of psalms. Ink runs thin, paper grows scarce. Hands tremble, every word feels like a plea to heaven. Every silence feels like heaven's answer. One evening, you meet a stranger priest. He carries no cross, only a small vial. He says it's vinegar, blessed and strong. He rubs it on your hands, your face. It burns like fire, but smells like safety. He says sin breeds sickness, sickness sin. He says confession cleanses the soul's air. You nod, unsure, but whisper a prayer. Maybe the words themselves have power. Maybe hope is the last medicine left. At night, the wind howls through the thatch. It sounds like someone crying softly. You pull your blanket. Though it stinks, you feel lice crawling. But stay still. The moonlight seeps through broken boards. It paints crosses on the dirt floor. You count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You whisper for God to spare your home. You promise to be good, to repent, to obey. But the rats scratch beneath your bed. Morning brings no relief. Only repetition. Another neighbor gone. Another bell tolls. A baker's wife. A blacksmith's son. Gone. Their hut sealed with ash and fear. The priest sprinkles holy water on doorways. Some villagers hang garlic or dead birds. They say it keeps evil spirits away. You do the same, just in case. Faith and fear are twin brothers here. No one knows which one is stronger. The fields are empty, overrun with weeds. Crows perch on scarecrows like dark judges. The wind smells faintly of burned flesh. Work has stopped. Trade has stopped. Hope too. You try to pray, but forget the words. Your voice sounds strange in the silence. You think about food, about warmth, about peace. But peace feels like a story from before. The only thing that truly grows here now is despair, spreading faster than the plague. One day, a rider comes from the city. His clothes are black, his face hidden. He brings a message, sealed with wax. The Lord commands more tithes, more tax, even in death. The poor still owe something. People spit when they hear the decree, but they pay, because punishment is worse. The gallows wait, empty, but expectant. The hangman sharpens his blade nearby. No mercy left, only debt and disease. You wonder what sin England committed, why the sky feels heavier every year, why mercy is whispered, but wrath shouted. The priest says, trials purify the soul, but your soul feels scraped raw already. You've lost count of funerals and flames. You've lost faith in the men of faith. Still, you bow your head when the bell rings, because even fear is better than nothing, and nothing is what the dead have now. As the sun sets, everything glows red. The horizon looks like it's bleeding slowly. You walk to the well, hands trembling. The water smells metallic, like blood. You drink anyway, because thirst wins. The taste stays long after the swallow. It reminds you of iron and endings. The night returns, patient and endless. You close your eyes, whisper a final prayer. Let tomorrow be kinder than today. But tomorrow rarely listens anymore. Tomorrow brings the same hollow bell, the same smoke, the same hungry eyes. You've become a ghost who still breathes, a survivor in a world allergic to mercy. The stars above seem colder now. Even they avoid looking at earth. You wonder if heaven closed its gates, and hell, seeing no room, spilled upward. Welcome, traveler, to England. Year 1450? The bell tolls again at dawn. A sound rolls across the valley. You no longer flinch when it rings. Death has become part of the morning. Even the crows barely lift their heads. They've grown fat from too much sorrow. You step outside, barefoot, half dreaming still. The fog hugs the ground like mourning cloth. The air smells of smoke and wet wood. Another day begins, heavy with silence. The plague has slowed, but not ended. Its shadow lingers in every breath. Whole families are gone. Houses empty. The village feels hollow, half erased now. Weeds grow where laughter once lived. You can't remember when you last smiled. Even the priest prays without conviction anymore. His voice cracks between hymns and coughs. He buries more friends than he saves. And still, he whispers that God listens. Today, something strange happens in town. A nobleman's men arrive with banners. They wear bright cloth, polished boots, gloves. Their smell is foreign, like perfume and ink. They bring orders from the local lord. He declares a feast, an act of thanksgiving. He says the plague has ended. Finally, he says England will rise again. He says the people must rejoice loudly, but the people are too tired to cheer. They drag tables from storage, wipe dust. The market square fills with uneven noise. Half the vendors are gone, half returned. Pigeons circle, confused by the sudden life. The cook fires crackle, smoke curling skyward. You can smell meat for the first time. Real meat, pork, goose, and maybe lamb. It smells like sin and salvation mixed. Hunger makes you forget your hesitation. You join the crowd, bowl in trembling hands. The nobleman sits on a raised dais. His robes shimmer in the candlelight. He smiles too wide, teeth gleaming cold. He drinks from a golden chalice greedily. Beside him, guards stand like stone idols. They do not eat, only watch the crowd. They count the people, the movement, the noise. Even celebration must now be controlled. Laughter sounds forced, like breaking wood. But food, still tastes like forgiveness tonight. They serve porridge, sweetened with honey, bread still warm, butter thick and salty, a miracle. After months of gnawing hunger, you eat, hands shaking, lips trembling slightly. The first bite makes you almost cry. Then comes meat, rare, juicy, steaming. It feels unreal, like a forbidden dream. For a moment, you forget the graves outside. You forget the rats, the screams, the bells. You just chew, swallow, breathe, exist again. But the feast hides something underneath. Behind the joy, you sense quiet fear. The Lord speaks of rebuilding, of obedience. He says the plague was a divine trial. He says loyalty is the only cure. He reminds everyone of their debt. He demands more work, more taxes soon. He says survival must now be repaid. The crowd nods, mouths full, hearts numb. Fear tastes sharper than any spice tonight. After the feast, torches line the road. The sky burns orange, then it sinks to black. You hear a flute, weak but sincere. Children dance, though few are left now. Their laughter sounds fragile, almost holy. You want to join, but your legs ache. You sit by the fire, watching shadows move. Each ember feels like a memory fading. Someone passes you a jug of ale. It's warm, sour, but tastes like hope. Then a man stands near the square. He wears rags but speaks with fire. He says the nobles caused this suffering. He says greed brought the wrath of God. He says the poor died for rich sins. The crowd murmurs, eyes darting nervously. Guards shift their spears, boots grinding dirt. The man doesn't stop, his voice rising higher. He speaks of justice, of a new order, and for the first time, people listen. The Lord frowns, whispers to his captain. Moments later, the man is seized roughly. He's dragged to the gallows near the gate. No trial, no priest, no last words. The rope creaks. The crowd falls silent. Even the fire seems to dim a little. His feet twitch once, then go still. Someone starts praying softly in Latin. Someone else vomits behind the tavern wall. The celebration ends with that sound. Silence. Days pass. The plague finally retreats. Not gone, but tired of its own cruelty. Life returns. Slower, cautious, uncertain. Fields are plowed again. Bells ring lighter. Children chase chickens through muddy lanes. Women hang laundry. Men sharpen tools. But the fear never truly disappears. It lives beneath the skin, always waiting. You feel it when someone coughs nearby. You feel it when the wind changes direction. Food grows more precious than gold again. You learn to grind weeds into flour. You learn which roots don't kill instantly. You learn hunger has many faces. Sometimes it looks like prayer at night. Sometimes it looks like a stolen loaf. Sometimes it wears your reflection quietly. The line between sin and survival blurs. Even confession feels smaller these days, as if the church itself is tired of listening. The priest still visits every home. He brings words, not miracles, not medicine. He says faith will heal what plague couldn't. But you see the doubt in his eyes. He's thinner now, his robes torn slightly. He eats less, sleeps less, prays more. He says heaven tests the faithful hardest, but you wonder if heaven just forgot. Still, you kneel, because habit is strong, and hope, though small, still glows faintly. One evening, a traveler comes from London. He carries parchment, sealed and stained. He says the king calls for rebuilding. He says new laws, new trades, new towns. He says the future has arrived finally, but the future looks just like the past. Men still bow. Women still toil silently. Gold flows upward, never downward again. You listen, then go back to your chores. Dreams are luxuries peasants can't afford. The traveler speaks of distant revolts, of peasants refusing to pay their lords, of riots crushed under iron hooves, of villages burned. for speaking too loudly. He says England bleeds, but won't learn. You believe him, because the ground remembers. Every drop of sweat and blood stays here. The soil is fat with suffering already. You wonder how long before it bursts again. Rebellion is just hunger wearing armor. Years pass, or maybe only months. Time lost meaning after so much death. You grow older, slower, quieter inside. Your hands crack. Your hair turns gray. The church bell still rings every dawn, but now it sounds almost peaceful again. The plague left scars no one can see, but it also left strange wisdom behind. You've learned endurance is its own faith, and kindness its most defiant prayer. On market days, the square feels alive. Bakers shout, blacksmiths hammer, children laugh. You trade turnips for a piece of cheese. You smile without noticing you've smiled. The priest blesses the bread and ale. He thanks God for sparing what's left. And though his voice shakes, people believe, because belief is easier than memory, and forgetting is how humanity survives. The past rots quietly, like old bones in soil. But nights are still heavy with ghosts. You see them in the flicker of lamps, faces you once knew. Smiling faintly, they linger near wells, doorways, fields. They whisper not curses, but reminders to live, to eat, to keep going forward, to find beauty, even in broken things. The moon listens. The stars almost approve. You whisper back, I'm still here. And maybe that's enough for now. Winter returns, fierce and unrelenting. The roofs leak. The frost creeps inward. You huddle near the fire, bones stiff. Your family sleeps close, breathing softly. Outside, wolves howl in the frozen dark. You close your eyes and remember summer, the feast, the song, the man who spoke, the smell of bread, the warmth of ale. Even sorrow has its quiet sweetness. Even endings can feel almost kind. The priest dies one night, without warning. They find him kneeling beside the altar. A candle still burns beside his hand. His face looks calm, his lips half smiling. The village buries him at dawn quietly. No bell this time, only wind and snow. You realize you will miss his voice. Even doubt sounds lonelier without company. Someone starts singing a hymn softly. It carries farther than the wind does. Spring arrives, like an exhausted guest. Fields bloom again, cautious but bright. The river runs clear, washing old sins. Children chase butterflies through tall grass. You plant seeds, careful, deliberate, hopeful. The earth accepts them without complaint. Life crawls back, where death once ruled. You look up and see clouds drifting lazily. For the first time, they look harmless again. You breathe deeply and taste sunlight itself. Maybe this is forgiveness, quiet and slow, not from heaven, but from the earth. It forgives you for surviving this long. It forgives your fear, your hunger, your rage. You stand in the field, hands in dirt. The soil feels warm, alive, forgiving. You whisper, we're still here, still human. And the wind seems to nod in return. The church bell rings, once clear and low, but this time, it sounds like life again. You walk home under a red gold sky. Smoke rises from chimneys, thin and steady. Someone bakes bread. You smell it faintly. Children run past, laughing without fear. You pause, listen, and almost weep, not from sorrow, but from relief itself. You survived the darkest century of all. You bore witness to hunger, plague, and fire. Yet still, somehow, there is music left, and that, perhaps, is England's greatest miracle. The bell tolls one last time tonight, not for death, but for remembrance. It rings for those who endured, for those who fell and were forgotten, for those who prayed through the smoke, and for you, the last witness left. The fog returns, but softer this time. It feels like a blanket, not a shroud. You close your eyes, whisper to the dark. Let tomorrow finally belong to the living. The winter finally breaks. The air tastes softer now, almost sweet. The rivers, once frozen like stone, begin to sing. You wake before dawn, as you always do. But today, the silence feels different, not heavy, only expectant, like a held breath. The first light slips through your window. It paints the walls in gold and dust. The same walls that once heard weeping, now they echo only the soft sound of morning. You sit up, slow, cautious, but alive. Outside, a bird calls, a sound forgotten for years. It's strange how life returns quietly, not with fanfare, but with small miracles. A seed sprouting in the mud, a child laughing without coughing, a baker's oven smoking again at dawn. Even the dogs bark with new hunger. The village looks different under the sun. The ruins are still there, blackened, skeletal, but between them, wildflowers bloom stubbornly. They crawl over stone like hope itself. People rebuild slowly, with rough hands and tired eyes. They no longer pray for miracles, only for time. A painter arrives one morning on horseback. He carries brushes, pigments, and strange ideas. He says he came from the city, from Oxford maybe. He speaks of new colors, new visions, new faith, not the faith of priests, but of the human spirit. He says beauty is also a kind of prayer. You don't understand at first. He sets up near the old chapel, silent, focused, day after day. He paints the same thing. Light. Light on faces, on hands, on broken wood. He captures something invisible, yet alive. People begin to gather just to watch him see. They say England is changing again. Merchants travel more. Ships sail farther. Boats appear. Heavy, sacred, whispering Latin. But soon, some are written in English too. Stories for a common folk, for those who endured. You touch a page once and feel it breathe. They call it the new age of reason. But for you, it feels more like remembering what it means to be human, to build, to sing, to forgive, to begin again, to speak not out of fear, but curiosity, to see the world, not as punishment, but possibility. The painter finishes his work by midsummer. He calls it the light after the plague. It shows a mother holding her child. The child reaches toward the sun. Behind them, fields bloom where graves once lay. You stand before it and cannot move, because you know that mother. You have seen her face in mirrors. You have held that same fragile hope. The painter asks your name quietly. You tell him, though it feels unnecessary. He nods and says, "Then you've survived enough to be remembered." The king sends word to rebuild London. Cathedrals rise again, taller than before, but their walls carry new symbols now. Not only crosses, but stars, suns, compasses, signs of curiosity, of learning, of the world beyond faith. The old age of darkness begins to fade. Children are taught letters, not just prayers. Some even learn to write their own names. Women begin to trade, to keep gardens, to heal. They carry strength learned through suffering. The plague took millions, but left a strange gift, a hunger for meaning, not just survival. In the evenings, the village gathers again. They tell stories by firelight, as before, but now the stories are different. They speak not of punishment, but of endurance, not of sin, but of the quiet courage of living. Even the priest, the new one, smiles more often. You walk by the river, one dusk. The water glows copper in the dying sun. Children skip stones, their laughter pure. You close your eyes and listen. It sounds like a promise, fragile, eternal, that the world, no matter how scarred, keeps turning. Someone begins playing a lute nearby. The tune is soft, unpolished, human, you hum along, your voice rough with age. The melody rises with the wind, disappears among trees, and for a moment, you imagine the dead are listening too. Maybe they smile, maybe they finally rest. As night falls, you light a single candle. Its flame flickers, then steadies. You place it by the window, as your mother once did, a sign for wanderers, for lost souls, for yourself. The wind sighs against the walls gently. You whisper, the darkness has done its part. The stars appear, bright, countless, near, each one a story waiting to be told. You realize that even after ruin, the sky remained unchanged, patient, full of memory. Maybe that's what faith truly is. Not in heaven, but in the endurance of light. Tomorrow, you'll rise before dawn again. The earth will be damp, the air kind. You'll sow more seeds, patch another roof. You'll teach a child a new word, perhaps hope. And the world, though battered, will listen, because every voice that remains is a victory. The bell rings once more in the distance. No warning, no mourning, just time passing. Its sound floats over fields of new wheat. You watch, silent, smiling faintly. You survived the age of plague and fire. Now you live in the age of light. England breathes again, slow and deep. Her wounds still ache, but they heal. Her people remember, but they dream again. The painter's colors dry, the ink spreads, the bells toll, and the fields bloom. And somewhere, between memory and dawn, a voice whispers softly, England awakens.